Welcome to the Business Building Blocks podcast, where we talk about the struggles and celebrations that leaders and entrepreneurs experience on their journey to success. I'm your host, Kristina, and I'm passionate about helping you achieve massive amounts of success at work and at home. We'll talk about all things people and organizational wellness, share relatable stories, and feature insightful guests because quality people and processes are at the heart of every success story. Ready to learn, grow, and have fun? Let's dive in. Hello and welcome to the Business Building Blocks podcast. I'm your host, Kristina Schmitt. If you feel like you have been doing all the right things in your business and you've hired the team, you've got people doing the work you used to do, you're having meetings, you've grown your revenue, but for whatever reason, your profit is still the same. You're not making any more money for all this extra effort. And to top it off, you're working more hours, you're still working 6 days a week, and you're just feeling very stretched and pulled. If you've been feeling it all like this, then this episode is for you. I want you to hunker down, take a drive, have a listen, and let's listen up. I'm going to put a solution in front of you and help you to move past this, because this is kind of this one piece that drives me bonkers and is my motivation for wanting to help businesses, especially these growing businesses. So listen up, let's dive in. What are we talking about today? We're talking about something I'm going to call the leadership ceiling. So you might be saying, well, what do you mean by that? Like in a corporate setting, we might call it like a ceiling, like where you can't get promoted above it. But in a smaller business, medium-sized business setting, or a business where you're the owner, obviously no one is telling you that you can't get promoted above anywhere else because you're your own boss, right? Nobody's promoting you anywhere. But what I mean by that is a point at which your business grows and you haven't grown with it, or you haven't made a flip that's necessary to carry on the business and continue the growth. So this is a sweet spot that so many businesses get to. And this is a lot of times where people say, I'm done, and they sell, or I'm done, and they just, hack off half the business and run it smaller, rather than shifting how they behave and shifting their leadership to move with the growth. So let's get into understanding what happens here and why we get here. We hire people typically for two reasons. The first reason is because we're not capable of doing whatever the work is. So typically that's like a financial person. Sometimes it's a social media person. Sometimes it's a salesperson, because not everybody likes to sell. It's because we can't do it. Or if we were to do it, it would take too much energy, too much of our time, or because we've run out of the capacity to do it. So sometimes those kind of things go hand in hand. It's like, because you struggled with it, but now, hey, you've grown enough that you can afford to hire somebody to do it, so you don't have to struggle with it anymore. So it's usually one of those two things, or some kind of combination, nuanced part of those two things. But typically it meets one of those two things. So when we run out of capacity, it's because, okay, well, our time has to be filled with doing this. Like we're selling more widgets, so we have to be designing more widgets, and we can't afford to also be outselling them to someone else, or also be doing payroll on every Friday or every other Friday, whatever that looks like. So they're your usual two pieces that are going to force this. And it makes perfect sense, right? Like you've got to grow, you've got to start spending your time over here versus over there. But where we run into this leadership ceiling is when we've grown, we've hired the people because we needed more capacity. Like, you need more types of widgets designed, so you've got to hire more people, or you've got, you're writing code for 3 different portions of the app and you couldn't possibly do that yourself. So you had to hire people to do that. So it makes sense. But where the ceiling hits is usually when there comes a point when you, the leader or the owner, can't continue to do the work the same way anymore. And you have to start the proverbial working on the business instead of in the business point. And because when you don't do that, that's when we run into troubles. So I want you to think of the org chart for your business. So when you first started the business, or when it was very small, if you tried to create an org chart, like obviously there would be one person on it, but there isn't just one person. There's one person in several different roles. So picture the org chart. You got the person at the top, you, And then you've got all these different things. You've got the finance thing, you got HR, you've got sales, you've got marketing, you've got operations, you've got engineering. So you have all these different pieces, and your name is just in every single one of them. And as the business grows, you start to switch your name for someone else's name. And that's fantastic. What I tend to see is I see that happen for all of these, roles that the leader doesn't want. And then there's always that one role, and it's usually the crux of the business, right? And in the E-Myth, we call it the technician, right? So usually the technician is the one who starts the business because they're really good at it. They have the special way to do it, or they're very efficient at doing it, or they're very just excellent at doing it, and they want to do more of it, and they create this business from it. And what ends up happening is that piece becomes that challenge for the owner or the top leader to back off from. I know I saw it in myself in manufacturing when I came up through the ranks through the operations area. I was quality, I was lean, I was supervisor, I was an operations manager, and then he eventually became a plant manager. So where did I want to go spend my time? Over in the operations area, making sure, we were running the right stuff. If there was a problem, we had the right people. I was doing all the things that the person below me was meant to do, because I was like, that's how I contribute. That's how I make sure I stay on top of it. And that happens a lot, whether you're in a large corporation like I was, and, that's where you came up through the ranks, or you're in your own business and you grew it from everything. You did everything from the get-go. And what happens is a lot of stuff you gladly say goodbye to and hopefully delegate, but potentially abdicate to someone else. And now it's very hard to let go of that one piece. So looking at the org chart again, like after this growth has taken place and you've got other people leading these other teams, they probably have teams of people underneath of them. What I see a lot is that department or that group of people that, where the leader came from still has that leader on top of it. Or even worse, you've got somebody there and yet you're still hanging out in there a lot, right? You're still like saying, well, I have to do this still, and I have to take care of this, and I have to check this, and I have to, there's something that the leader is actually afraid to let go of within there. And they might not be ready to, the team might not be ready to take it over. And that's leadership work that we have to work on, but that's what's going to hold you back. Because what happens is that if you're running this, if you're watching the YouTube, I'm using the one engineering or the operations section from the org chart, however you look at it. And if the top leader who should be running, who has to pay attention to all the other areas, is also spending a lot of time, an inordinate amount of time into this other area, then something is not getting done. Because if you were, let's say your name is still there, if you were to replace yourself, you would expect that person to work a full-time job, right? Because they would have to be developing the team, they'd have to be assigning the work, they'd have to be checking the work, they'd have to be helping to problem solve, be putting improvements in place, jumping in when it gets difficult. So they'd be doing all of these things that are essentially a full-time job. But then you also have a full-time job up top too, because there's overall improvement, there's overall strategy, there's initiatives, there's, making sure everything else is running the way it should be running. There's all of these other things that still happen. So if you're essentially doing 2 full-time jobs, things are going to slow down at you. So in a production term, we call this a bottleneck. And usually you can identify a bottleneck because there's a bunch of work piled up in front of it. And while in a business sense, you might not always see the pile of work in front of it, what ends up happening is there's a mental load of work in front of it, or there's people waiting for you to do something. And sometimes in order to get through that work, you're going to just say, this isn't important right now, and I don't need to do this. Sometimes that's true, and sometimes it's not. When it comes to strategically having a plan and making sure everybody's on the same page and working through this to the same goal together, that's actually probably a really important thing. When it comes to training your team members up, your new hires up, developing them to run that department that you can't let go of, or getting them the extra help that they need, that's not true. So when we look at where we spend our time, there's things that are urgent and important that need our time. Ultimately, right now, there's a deadline. People are asking for it. They're waiting for us. And then there's the not urgent, but still important stuff. And as the leader, it's your job to focus on the non-urgent yet important stuff. Because what happens when we don't focus on those things is that there's a whirlwind of activity that continues to get worse and worse and worse because we're not solving the problems, or we're not growing in the right direction, or we're not making sure everybody is heading to the same place and getting there together on time, supporting each other. And what we end up having is we have pockets of work happening, and it might feel like multitasking to you, but really what it is it's thinning out of a shared resource. It's lack of focus, and it's doing everything not to the level that you actually want it, but doing it to a point where you can tick the box and say it's done, but not get to the level of the metric you want to get to, or to the level that you want to get it to. So there's a choice to be made here. And first, there's a perspective shift that I want you to make as the leader. So when you get promoted to a title of manager, leader, owner, founder, whatever that title is that you're holding, when you get promoted there, you don't suddenly become superhuman. You're still a human being, and you still need breaks. You still need help. You still have a limit to your capabilities, capacity, to your time in your day, everything else. So getting help is not a failure. Delegating does not equal failure. Delegating wrong could lead to failure, but delegating is not bad. And working 6 days a week is not the goal. So if you're finding yourself struggling with letting go of this, or feeling like you have to be perfect, feeling like I should be able to do all the things that I'm asking everybody to do, and I can do them if they can't get them done, and you're feeling like you've set an expectation for yourself to be superhuman or a superhero that can get everything done at lightning speed, I want you to pause and realize, I'm still human. I shouldn't have to have 2 full-time jobs just because I'm the leader. Remember that. I know I fell into that a lot, where I felt like I can't ask for help because I'm supposed to be the leader. I'm supposed to be the one helping them. I'm supposed to know all of this, so I need to help them. So if I ask for help, then what does that say about me? So these are stories. These are identity problems that get in our way of making a shift, and that get in our way of breaking through this leadership ceiling. So let's talk about what we do. Okay. So if we find that we're constantly just, doing these improvement things, we'll do them later, or it's not due yet. No one's asking for it yet. It doesn't feel urgent yet. If we're putting off these not urgent but important things all the time, then it's time for a shift for us. Because what ends up happening is that when we hit this leadership ceiling, what it causes to happen is that the business stops developing because the leader has stopped developing. And as a leader, it's so important to realize the impact that you have on the entire organization. And it might seem ridiculous, especially if maybe you're part of a huge organization and, there's leaders underneath of you and there's leaders underneath of them. But the impact that top leader can have on a business is huge, because where that leader spends their time is what everyone else deems as important as well. How that leader operates is how everybody else sees the priorities. So if you're working 6-7 days a week, 10 hours a day, taking calls through the night, the expectation now is that every leader underneath of you has to do that. So despite what you might say of, we need work-life balance, we need, I need you to take your vacation and actually take it, not work through it, and, train your backups so that when you're off, you can, take a break, and, just in case you get hit by the proverbial bus and you're no longer here, we can pick it up. Like, so many leaders I hear telling this, which is all great stuff, but they're not doing it themselves because they're not operating that way. So what inadvertently happens is that people don't believe them, because our actions, I'm using a lot of trite phrases, so I apologize, but our actions speak so much louder than our words. So if we say this thing and then we behave differently. Now people don't believe us when we say these words. They're going to believe our actions because we might really believe it deep down. Even though we know this, we still believe this about ourselves or about our identity as an owner or as a CEO or whatever it might be. We might believe this as part of our identity. So we want to break this cycle. So what I want you to do, if you found that your business has outgrown how you're leading it, then what I want you to do is do these things. So first, ask yourself this question. What does my business need from me now that it didn't need from me 3 years ago? So I'll take you through a few steps for how to answer that question. So pause on that one just as like an open one. You might have a couple of ideas. You might not know, but pause on that one. Think through some thoughts around that, I guess we could say. But let's get real practical and real clarity around it. So practically speaking, what I first want you to do is I want you to redefine your role. So in my leadership programs, I have an exercise in the time management portion where you can review a job description if you have one. But what I want you to do is just be able to summarize in a sentence or two what your role is in this business. What is it? So let's say you're the founder of the business. Okay. Your role is to keep the business going and sell more, to keep it open. I don't know, whatever it might be. It might be, maybe you have a design portion that's still part of it, but maybe you don't. Maybe you actually have an entire team with a manager of designers. Your role no longer is to design the stuff. It's actually to run the business, make the business successful. If you've done strategy with me, then you've probably had to answer a question of why does my business exist? So that's kind of your role, right? Is to make sure your business executes the reason of why it exists. So think through that and then look at how your time is actually being spent. And also, I want you to consider your working geniuses. How do those fit in? Are you forcing yourself to do things that are in your competencies and frustrations because, well, this is the hat I'm wearing? That might not work for you. Are you holding on to things because you really like it and maybe you shouldn't be doing that anymore? So get really honest. Do that quick summary of yourself, of what your role is, and then break down what you do all day long. I also want you to keep in mind, I talked about it in the last episode, the roles of a leader. So yeah, you're the founder, you're the leader, right? So you have to set and communicate the vision, you have to develop your team, and you have to get results. So if you're spending all your time getting results and not doing the first two, okay, we got to look at that too. So redefine your role of what it should look like. What is that ideal breakdown of your day, week, month, of what types of activities should you be doing? And then do a gap analysis. Okay, what should I be doing? What am I currently doing? How do I change that, right? Take one thing, work it, okay? The next part is you will likely find things that you need to let go of. Okay, so number 2 in this, you need to start developing the people that you're releasing this work to, right? So you need to start telling them, teaching them, properly delegating to them the work that needs to be done. So proper delegation is not just show them once, throw it over the wall. It's saying, okay, this is the thing. This is why you're going to do it. We're going to take you from learning it to owning it. Right? These are the steps of delegation. So when you start rolling things out to people, it's going to take time. It's not just going to be, I'm going to show them how to do it today, and then they're going to do it as well as I did it next week. That's not how it's going to work. It's going to take some steps and stages and some time, but that's part of the development. So work through a plan, a training plan to transfer it. They will go through this portion of where you're going to give them some tasks. Then you're going to be able to give them, the whole, like a whole section of it, like maybe a process of it. Then you should be able to say, here's the thing, come back and check with me before it goes out. Okay. And then the ideal final stage of delegation is you're going to get to the point of where they're going to own it and they're just going to come to you when things go awry. Right. So that's the ideal. Don't leap to get there, but you have to slowly develop the team around you to take these tasks on. The third thing you need to do, you need to create clarity about where the business is going. So we call this strategy, but really the way I do it is very practical, not fluffy at all. I don't allow fluff words in the strategy because they don't mean anything and they just get frustrating. But real life. Why do we exist? What do we do? How do we behave? What's the most important thing right now? Okay. Like that one, I cannot stress that one enough, because that focus is what creates actual momentum forward, and not people running around just draining resources. So creating some clarity about where the business is going, communicating that, and making sure it's looked at, which then leads us to number 4. Build the systems that let it run without you holding everything together. So metrics, strategically placed, and we'll say run. So meetings that have a specific purpose to review something, and then actions come out of them to solve the problem or to work on the problem. This is like real accountability. This is laying out processes where people actually know what they own and know what decisions they can make without bothering you. Right? If you have managers, they need to know which decisions don't need to go through you. And it's going to take some give and take as they grow in the delegation process of it. But it's also going to take some, hey, we didn't realize we would face a decision like this. So next time you have the rights to do this without me, because it falls within this sort of thing. So it's going to take feedback. It's going to take all of these things. So if you can do these 4 things, this will help you change your leadership. It will help you change and grow into a way that allows you to actually do the one job that you're meant to have. All right. So to wrap it all up, you can't break through the leadership ceiling by just working harder. Okay. You've done that. You've been doing that. And now you're stretched to the gills. It's not just by working harder. It's by making a shift in what you do, understanding that the business needs you to behave differently than you did before. And that starts with you understanding how you should operate, how you delegate, how you train your team, then getting some clarity and letting everybody know about it. Okay. So it's not being superhuman. To my knowledge, you cannot go and become superhuman, superhero. So it is not that, but it's about becoming the leader that the business now needs. If you enjoyed today's episode, or you know someone who needs to hear it, please share it with them. Like, subscribe it, leave a comment, and leave a review wherever it is that you have watched this podcast, listened to this podcast. And I hope you have a wonderful week, and I'll see you on the next episode of the Business Building Blocks podcast.
Thanks for tuning in to the Business Building Blocks podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss what's next. If you found value in our conversation, please leave a quick review, like, or share. It helps us reach more amazing listeners like you. For more resources and insights, visit KristinaSchmitt.ca, where you can find tools and support to empower your leadership journey. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you in the next episode.